Oh, hey guys. So I'm gonna change up the tempo a little bit from my last video where I talked about how, we all need to stand up for the little guy, man. It's time to make a stand. We need to start standing up for the little guy. Oh boy. I guess I feel like I'm the only one who sees the joke in all that. Like, it's so stupid. But anyway, so we're gonna change up the tempo a little bit. I got a comment where and I think I well, first of all, this video is for entertainment and education purposes only. Any and everything I say could be wrong, so do your own research and come to your own conclusions. Thank you. So I got a comment, and I believe that I don't know, I could be wrong, but I think the person was kind of asking, or thought it would be cool if I did a video just talking about what music I listen to and everything, but whether or not I interpreted that correctly, I thought it would be fun to do a video on that, or just something that I would like to do a video on. And so I'm just gonna go into that, So wow, that's a pretty deep. It can be like a deep subject. Okay, so let me start off there, since whatever. So, because there's all this controversy with mainstream, any and everything that's mainstream is evil, right? If it's mainstream, it's evil. If it's mainstream, it involves child sacrifice, all this stuff. So therefore, like if I like Frank Zappa or something, well, I should be ashamed of myself because Frank Zappa is just part of the mainstream, And that's a really black and white perspective, absence of nuance. And in reality, nothing is black and white, right? But it's like the only thing that you will see on like alt tech and new tech. All they ever do is explain how everything is black and white and is just absent of any and all nuance, which is not true. Whether the person realizes it or not, that's not the truth. So music, again, like you could like well, we'll just go, let's say you like Frank Zappa. Well, you're going to hear all kinds of people tell you that Frank Zappa is part of the CIA and therefore he was involved in child trafficking and sacrifice and on and I mean and because of course. So, well, let's say that this black and white view is true. Well, then what do you listen to? You can't listen to Frank Zappa. You can't listen to AC/DC. You can't listen to because you're just supporting the flesh-eating, adrenochrome addicted, sex trafficking world, and you can't watch movies like say you like the movie Star Wars. Well, Star Wars. Well, George Lucas is a sex trafficking, a baby eating, on and on. It just never ends. It's just like constant. And so if you really take all this to heart, well, then you don't listen to any music because all music is evil. You don't watch any movies because all movies are evil. And pretty much you're just paralyzed. You don't do anything. Even stepping foot outside your door is satanic because that's what Because the world outside of your sanctuary is just full. It's just all connected to Freemasonry and eating babies, and so just merely existing is a sin. Like, you can't do anything. You can't drive a car because that means you're part of the system. How dare you pay for registration and insurance? You're just part of the system. You're just another one of those, you're just a goy. If you pay for registration, well, then you're just enabling the system. Aren't you against? Don't you realize that you're sovereign and you have the right to drive a car without a license and registration? You're just stupid. You're stupid if you have a license. This is literally the way the internet works, and all these truthers and all this shit. It's like, it's insanity, pure insanity. So you can't even listen to music without somebody harassing you and accosting you that you must be part of the the pedophile ring because you listen to AC/DC, because AC/DC, they were all involved in sex trafficking and satanic ritual, and you can't do anything without being accused of being part of the system. Just existing in this world makes you guilty of being a part of the evil, satanic, Illuminati, Freemasonic system. And so you just get to the point where you just don't give a fuck anymore. Like, zero fucks to give, bro. I'm going to just listen to AC/DC and not give a fuck what you think about how AC/DC were eating babies and you know what I mean? And you might think I'm being hyperbolic, and I'm not. I am not. I spend a good deal of time on the internet observing it. It's the Jews. Everything is the Jews. So if you watch a movie, you're supporting the Jews. If you listen to AC/DC, you're supporting the Jews. If you move your hands a certain way, you're supporting the Jews. And you're just another goy because you moved like this. I mean, you wear a white shirt. Well, you're just a goy because you had to go to the store using shekels and purchase them from a Jew-owned store. So you're just a goy. Everybody has totally, completely lost their fucking minds. They really have. And so it's like, you might as well just, if you're listening to AC/DC, don't tell anybody, because you're going to get accosted by the flat earthers. Because the flat earthers are going to say that AC/DC has a song about the earth being a globe, and they're going to accost you. You are the enemy. And this is literally how insane everything is. So don't try this at home. If you listen to AC/DC, keep it to yourself. Do the Riverdance. Life is a Riverdance. That's going to be the name of this video. Life is a Riverdance. So do the Riverdance of life. So let me go into the Riverdance, because this involves music also. The Riverdance is like a Celtic, Irish, like, cultural thing that the Celtics developed when the Celtics got taken over by, I don't know if it was the English or some like oppressive, group of people took over like Ireland and the Celtic culture, and then forced their beliefs on the Celts. And so the Celts, they all their cultural traditions that they did, they were not allowed. By law, they were not allowed to do those anymore because it went against the laws of the government. So all these Celtic traditions that they had, the law states that they cannot do so. And if they're caught doing so, well, then they're going to be beheaded publicly in front of the the community and shit. And it's like this. This is really what it was like. Like if you look into the Riverdance, they now, they'll have like a Riverdance events at like like a coliseum or a stadium, and people pay to go, and then you have all these Celtic, like Irish people that are seasoned in the cultural tradition of the Riverdance. But the whole story behind the Riverdance is totally insane. So what the Riverdance is okay, like you can see from my waist up, right? So the Riverdance is I'm doing all my dancing with my legs. So from my waist down is my Riverdance. But from the waist up, I just look like I'm standing here. But below my waist, I'm doing the cultural Riverdance because I'm a Celt and it's part of my culture. This is how oppressive the government was to the Celts and the Irish during the time that this tradition was developed. So the Celts had to secretly practice their Celtic tradition in their homes because they couldn't do it publicly. Otherwise, they would be beheaded by the English, And so inside their homes, and they had to keep their curtains open and everything so that they could be seen as to what are they doing. Make sure they're not practicing their Celtic traditions. And so they had to create the Riverdance where they can practice all of their Celtic traditions from the waist down, but from the waist up, it just looks like they're just standing there. That way, when they're being spied on through the window, they just look like they're standing there. And they can't, from outside their house, you can't see that they're doing their Riverdance thing. And so this is true. And so this is what you must do, is the Riverdance of life. So if you listen to AC/DC, you have to keep it secret, because someone that's totally insane is going to find out. And then they're going to start preaching to you how, well, don't you know that, AC/DC is just some Jewish stuff, you goyim, you're just a goy. That's just more Jew shit stuff. Yeah, like totally. Like, you got to do the Riverdance of life, man. So anyways, all right, I know. All right, here we go. Music. So I've gone through a lot of different phases in my life of music, but I've always been obsessed with music. And I grew up in a dysfunctional family, like pretty much all of us, 90% or probably more of all of us grew up in dysfunctional families. If you're Generation X. And, the millennials and Zoomers have it worse in that regard than Generation X. But if you're Generation X, like 90% of Generation X grew up in dysfunctional families, right? Well, one lucky thing about my upbringing is my dad had really good taste in music. And so at a very early age, I got exposed to all the Jewish greats, Rolling Stones, the Kinks, the Beatles, Jimi Hendrix, all the good shit, Steve Miller Band, all this shit. My dad is my dad's a musician, and so he was obsessed with music, and so it just passed on to me. And I fell totally in love with the Kinks and the Beatles. The Kinks and the Beatles, man, that was all I wanted to listen to. If I had my choice, it was the Kinks and the Beatles. That's it. And I'm talking from like a really young age, like by the time I was 5 years old, I was obsessed with fucking the Kinks and the Beatles and shit like this. Anyways, and then my obsession never went away, and I always wanted to play music. And then when I was 15, my brother gave me my first guitar, which was a bass guitar, and then that's when it just fueled the fire. It's like, you know. And so, but anyway, so like, and like, then when I started playing bass, I became totally obsessed with bass players. So Cliff Burton of Metallica was, and Geezer Butler from Black Sabbath. Like, these guys were like the ones that I was focused on. Like, these guys are fucking sick as fuck. And then you know, then I discovered Primus, and then of course I became obsessed with Les Claypool. Then I started getting into that, like, then, you know, where I found out about Victor Wooten of Bella Fleck and the Flecktones, and then I started getting obsessed with that. And then that kind of, that opened up the world of jazz, and like these old school jazz players are fucking insanely good. Like, it's like, oh my god. So then, and once the door of real jazz is opened up, it's just like, it's very easy to get lost, because there's so many fucking insanely good musicians, you know, and bass play. Dude, these bass players, like, unfucking believable, right? And so then that became really overwhelming after a while when I entered the jazz world. And so then I had to kind of go back. Okay, it's like, I can't, this is too overwhelming. But I, you know, I was all into Pantera, you know, any fucking metal and shit, all growing up. I really got into Soundgarden when the Bad Motorfinger album dropped, and you know, and then the people that I hung out with were people that like that, you know. But also, well, yes and no. But anyways, but then, and of course, AC/DC, like these kinds of bands, they're just the greats. Like AC/DC I was introduced to that shit around the time of the Beatles and all that, and it's just like, there's all this great shit, you know. But so I've listened to all kinds of shit, dude, and I care more about the quality of musicianship than anything else, which kept my mind open to, you know, all different genres of music. But to my core, at the heart and core, I'm like I've been mostly like a metalhead and a rocker metalhead, right? So you know, the first song I learned on the bass was Iron Man. Or no, it was Paranoid. Well, actually, I can't remember, because I learned both of those songs pretty much at the same time. But I believe one of them was first. It might have been Paranoid, and then Iron Man. And I've kind of had a semi idiot savant talent with playing music instrument. And what I mean by idiot savant is kind of like Rain Man. If you've ever seen the movie Rain Man, remember Dustin Hoffman is the Rain Man? And that's idiot savant. Like the scene where the box of toothpicks falls on the floor, and then Rain Man just randomly like says, "Oh, there's 2,782 toothpicks on the floor," or it was a box of matches. I can't remember which. And just like all that Rain Man had to do is take one glance at those spilled toothpicks or whatever on the floor, and he knew exactly the number of them that was on the ground. And that's like idiot savant levels, you know. And I mean, of course, I'm not like, but I'm like, what I mean is like, it's kind of a idiot savant thing with, like, once I got the bass guitar in my hand, like, I already knew how to play Paranoid within the first, 30 minutes or hour. I could play the song Paranoid pretty much note for note right along with the song. And that's what I mean, you know. And there are people, like, when I took, well, anyways, I won't go into it, but there are, like, truly idiot savant fucking people like that with in regards to music theory and shit, where it's like, whoa, like they don't have to study music theory at all, and all they have to do is look at music theory, and they're instant like geniuses. But outside of that, they can't even function. Like, they need to have their hand held, and like, they're retards, but they're total like extreme geniuses in the mathematics of music theory. But outside of that, they're just like retarded. They're like, ooh. It's pretty cool, But anyways, I'm not that level, you know what I'm saying. But anyways, I'm kind of an idiot savant, kind of mildly. So anyways, but yeah, I listen to all kinds of shit, dude. But I was listening to like truther, like I talk about how the truther movement existed way before the term truther was even around. Like, Megadeth are the pioneers of the truther movement. Like the album, almost practically all of their albums, pretty much. But like, Rust in Peace is pure truther content. It's totally, same with So Far So Good So What, Peace Sells But Who's Buying. This is all truther shit, and these albums came out in the mid 80s and early 90s. They were talking about all this truther shit way back, and people are acting like this is some new thing. Oh wow, the truther movement. It's old as fucking dirt, bro. I was totally obsessed with all this truther shit before the term truther ever existed. And that's what I loved about Megadeth and these bands like this. And so I was like, I was standing outside the record store waiting for the store to open the day that fucking Rust in Peace dropped, because I was getting that fucker, on cassette, so all that, I would listen to like Slayer, of course, Slayer. It's all part of Megadeth. All this shit. In my mid and late teens, I was totally into all this stuff, which I still am. I totally am, and of course Primus and all this shit. But I loved rock and roll, and then, like I said, the jazz thing was like, because I'm interested in musicianship, is what opened my eyes to jazz. Jazz is totally insane, dude. And so then, that opened up doors to all kinds of other stuff. And then it became overwhelming. And so then I just kind of went back to my roots a little bit. And I've always stuck with metal. Is always a go-to, is like metal. Thrash, shit like that. And then I didn't get into punk until I started playing in bands. And I didn't start playing in bands until I was like 30 or something, Something like that. But, and then you start playing in bands, and then it opens up a whole new thing. And then I really because I played in punk bands. And so then I was getting exposed to all kinds of punk. And that's when I fell in love with Minor Threat. Minor Threat's like, I would consider as the greatest punk band ever, but whatever. But that's because I'm biased about stuff here. But before, anyways, so like, one interesting kind of avenue that I went down is when I discovered the Grateful Dead, because I wasn't opposed to the Grateful Dead, but I didn't really care for him. It wasn't like something I would go buy their album. If I would hear Truckin' on the radio, and it's like, yeah, okay, whatever, it's cool, whatever, I don't know. But, and unbeknownst to me, the Grateful Dead are fucking musical geniuses. And I didn't know. And I was looking for musical geniuses, and I never knew that the Grateful Dead were musical geniuses. Like, I would hear one of their songs on the radio, and I'd just be like, Truckin'. Okay, yeah, so what? Truckin' got my chips cashed in. It just sounds like old man fucking, like, it doesn't sound like these guys are musical geniuses. So I didn't know they were musical geniuses. And then I accidentally discovered it. And once I discovered, like, dude, there is nothing like the genius of the Grateful Dead musicianship. Like, these guys are scary. Like, they're using mental telepathy and communicating to each other with their instruments live on stage. Like, they're total fucking musical geniuses. They and I didn't know. And same with Frank Zappa. I didn't know Frank Zappa was a musical genius either. And so, when I first discovered the Grateful Dead, like, it probably had more of an impact on me than any other band ever in my entire life. And I'm not a Deadhead. I'm a metalhead. And I didn't, I didn't like switch and become a Deadhead. Because that's how much respect I had for the Grateful Dead. Is like, I would never be a poser. But that don't mean that I can't love. I fell in love with the Grateful Dead, and knowing I'm not a Deadhead and that I'm a metalhead, completely fell in love with the Grateful Dead. Probably more than any band in my life. And this is how insane it is, And there will never be anything like the Grateful Dead ever again. And when Jerry Garcia died, the Grateful Dead was done. The Grateful Dead now is not the Grateful Dead. But, and I got to see like 13 shows with Jerry Garcia, 13 Grateful Dead shows with Jerry Garcia before he died. And so I got to see what the Grateful Dead is. And then I went to shows after Jerry Garcia died. I went to shows that were supposedly the Grateful Dead, and it was like unbelievable how different it was. It wasn't the same. And I didn't know. I thought it would be the same because Bob Weir is sick. You got all these great players. Yeah, it's unfortunate Jerry died, But, whatever. I'm going to go to some Dead shows. And when I went, it was shocking how much different it was without Jerry Garcia. And I didn't know. And so that's when I realized, like, the Grateful Dead is done. There will never be anything like the Grateful Dead, dude. It was totally insane. So anyways, I'm just going over music because, so I was a metalhead that was totally in love with the Grateful Dead, and I still am to this day. But anyways, and so that was a very strange, experience for me. And, like a lot of people, because I have, studied music theory and stuff too. And so when you study music theory, you can kind of gauge how knowledgeable a person is in music. And the more knowledgeable a person is in music theory, the more competent they are in breaking the rules of music. And when a person can break the rules of music, that shows the level of musicianship that they possess. Because you have to know the rules of music to be able to effectively break them, And these are all things that I learned over the years and stuff, and it's all true, And like the idea, like to be a jazz musician is a lifetime. It takes a lifetime to become a jazz musician. And that's what, that's the rule of jazz. Like, it never ends. To become a jazz musician takes a lifetime. That's how much there is to learn and understand and know and achieve in the world of jazz. It takes a lifetime. So anyways, I geeked out on all this stuff and but I never abandoned my true love, which was like the Kinks, the Beatles, rock and roll. Was my first true love was, the Kinks and the Beatles. I never abandoned that, never. Or metal, because heavy, like thrash metal and shit was something that I discovered for myself. Was, you know, it was just, that was another thing. I never abandoned my love of thrash and, you know, metal shit. And Black Sabbath. So, you know, like all this stuff. And then I played in a lot of bands, and that really changed my perspective on music a lot. Because once I started playing in bands, I'm like getting introduced to all these bands that nobody will ever hear. They'll never get discovered, you know. They're not going to be playing big arenas. And these bands, they're all over the place. And they're as good or better than anything you'll hear on the radio or anything. And they're everywhere. There's like so many talented people. And then that really changed my perspective. Because then it opens up a whole other thing, is like there's all this underground music that's like insanely good and extremely talented people that'll never get discovered. And so then I started down that rabbit hole, and that's like really overwhelming, because, you know, and then you look at mainstream music and it's all shit, the Justin Bieber shit and all that stuff. And you know, it's like really insane. It's like everything about the music, the world of music is totally insane. And a lot of, you know, inversions, you know, where like stuff that's total garbage, you're being told is good music. And the shit that you'll never hear and gets ignored is where all the good shit is. So that just complicated everything. And it got to the point where I just stopped. I just don't really listen to music because I'm playing in bands. I'm just focused on playing bands, so I'm not really listening to music. And when I would listen to music, it would be, I'm just listening to bands that complement. I'm just listening to music that complements the bands I'm in, so that I can get song ideas. You know, who was that famous artist that said, "Good artists borrow, great artists steal"? Picasso said that. Picasso is quoted saying, "Good artists borrow, great artists steal." And so I took that to heart. So when I would listen to music that I could steal their ideas from, not borrow, no, steal. I'm gonna rip these fuckers off. And so then that became my listening practice, where I would just listen to music that was gonna complement my songwriting skill. You know, that's all I cared about. And then that's when I really got into Electric Wizard and you know, let me try to think. Well, like Graveyard is a Swedish proto-metal band. It's fucking super sick. But I was also very picky and fickle and snobbish when it came to what I listened to. So I just kept it simple. Like Electric Wizard is essential. Electric Wizard, Black Sabbath, especially the old shit, essential. Graveyard was essential. That's just essential listening. Graveyard, Electric Wizard, Witch was another essential listening. You know, Witch, Graveyard, Electric Wizard. I started listening to a lot of that shit. But it was just a handful of bands that most complemented the sound that I'm going for in my band. And so I got to a point where I was just listening to that. Even though I love all different kinds of music, all I would listen to is just Graveyard, Electric Wizard, Black Sabbath, Sleep, but, you know, like bands like Cream also complement that same style, and Allman Brothers. So I would listen to the Allman Brothers, Graveyard, you know, and but I was listening to those to develop the sound of my band. So I would steal like, you know, um, particular styles from Allman Brothers so that I could incorporate it into my songs. And Grateful Dead was one, like, that was a part of it. Because really what I wanted to do eventually with my band is to have my songs go into like psychedelic jam, but only it's metal, not like hippie shit, but do psychedelic jams. Like take a song and like the Grateful Dead does. The Grateful Dead will be playing a song, and then they'll just segue right into some weird fucking jam, and then that jam will go on for like 5 minutes, and then it'll just like morph back into the song and go back into it. That was my goal eventually. Was so, but yeah, so Allman Brothers, Grateful Dead, and bands like Cream, and because I really liked simple songs. Because if you have a simple song, like as far as songwriting, with a simple song, if I write a simple song, it's easy to segue into like a little 2-3 minute improvisation jam, and then go back into the song. Because the song is just simple. So it allows for that, And so I really like songs. I like songs that are just simple. I don't like songs that feature a guitarist. Because, I like them, but not for me to write. If I'm going to write songs, I just want them to be simple. Not that the song features, Yngwie Malmsteen or something. I don't listen to that. Or I will. I don't dislike it, but I'm listening to music that's gonna expand my songwriting in the direction that I want my band to go. So I'm not interested in listening to that shit. I'm only interested in listening to bands that I can use that listening experience to expand the horizons of my band and where I want the sound of my band, the direction I want the sound of my band to go. And so I just limited, at that point, I just limited what I listened to that. And I did that for a lot of years. And then, all this weird stuff started happening in 2015. And I discovered all this truther shit. And it really made me kind of rethink my life and views that I've had. It challenged a lot of my views, And it was a real pivotal point for me because I saw that the world is changing in real time at a very fast pace, in comparison to years, the rest of my life. Like there's some real strange shift took place between like 2015 and 2017. Some world shift happened, like a shift in consciousness that I could see. I could see empirical evidence of. And so it challenged some of my views and things and this and that. And so then, and that changed my listening habits in regards to music. Because I started taking more of an interest in what this phenomena that's taking place in the world. And when that happened, a weird thing happened as far as my listening habits. My listening habits shifted almost entirely to Megadeth alone. That's it. So from like 2015 to 2017, the majority of all that I listened to was only the original recordings of the first 4 or 5 Megadeth albums, and that's it. That's all I would listen to for like a year and a half. All I would listen to was the original Peace Sells But Who's Buying, the original So Far So Good So What, the original Rest in Peace, and the original Countdown to Extinction, and that is like all I would listen to. And every once in a while, I would get so sick of listening to it that I would go through my CDs or whatever, and usually I would just put on some blues CD or like Johnny Cash or something, just to reset my palate. Where it's like, okay, just let me just reset my palate. I'm just, like when you eat sushi, that's what the ginger is for. You eat a piece of ginger and it resets your palate. That way you can get the full flavor of whatever roll you have. Say you have like 3 or 4 sushi rolls and they're different flavors, and the ginger is there to reset the palate. So I'll eat a fucking sushi, like a rainbow flavor or whatever. I'll eat one of those, and then I'll take the fucking ginger after I'm done eating it and eat the ginger to reset my taste bud palate, so that I can then I'll go to the next roll so I can get the full flavor of that next roll. Sushi is great. Dude, I could eat probably $200 worth of sushi in like 30 minutes. No fucking problem. But anyways, so yeah, and that became my listening habit for like probably close to 2 years. Weird, right? But I didn't care. That's what I wanted. That's what I liked. And then after a while, then I kind of snapped out of that. And then I just decided I don't really, my life is changing. I'm living a different life. I still love music, but I'm not playing in bands. I haven't played in bands for several years and stuff or whatever. And so what happened then is I just started listening to blues all the time. That's it. I just listen. There's a good blues station here, and all it plays is blues, and it hardly plays commercials. I don't even think it plays commercials. And it's just fucking blues, like real blues, straightforward blues. I just started listening to that, and I was just like, whatever. That's all I would listen to for a while. That went on for probably a couple of years. And so I just kind of unplugged from music in general and just listened to blues. And I love blues, like Buddy Guy, fucking Howling Wolf. Howling Wolf, dude, hell yeah. Buddy Guy, too, fucking great. Fucking really good blues shit, dude. What's that one, man? I can't never remember that guy's name, man. Fucking Aaron Trower? Isn't it Trower? Fucking, I think it's Trower, dude. That guy's songs are so fucking good, man. Like, oh my god. But anyways, and then after that, then I shifted just to straightforward rock and roll. And the main reason I did that is because the job that I had, I could get a fucking like a box and bring it to work and have it playing music all day. But I couldn't play Megadeth and shit because I have to play music that is friendly to the general people. Because my job, you got all these different people walking around and buying shit and customers everywhere. And it's a laid back enough job to where I could play music, but I couldn't be playing like Megadeth and shit like that. So I just got rock and roll music, any and everything rock and roll. And I fucking I had like 2,500 songs of just any and everything rock and roll. Steve Miller Band, Allman Brothers, just simple rock and roll, Tom Petty. And then I would just listen to that all the time at work. And so I went through that phase where I just listened to straightforward rock and roll shit you hear on the radio, which is good too. A lot of fucking good shit, man. And then once I switched jobs, whatever, that ain't happening. And then I found out, I was just curious what's going on with High on Fire, because High on Fire became a real obsession of mine, where I started to include High on Fire with my Megadeth playlist, to where If I'm not going to listen to Megadeth, I'm going to throw on High on Fire. But the only High on Fire albums I would listen to is Luminophorus and whatever the name of the album that came after Luminophorus. Those are the only High on Fire albums I would listen to. That's it. If I'm not listening to Megadeth, I'm listening to High on Fire, Luminophorus, or I don't remember the name of the other album, but Luminophorus is way better than the other one. The other one is like whatever, here or there. But Luminophorus, fucking amazing. So I'd throw on Luminophorus if I got sick of Megadeth. And so I became obsessed with High on Fire. And one of the reasons is because Matt Pike, who's the front man of High on Fire, because I liked High on Fire, you know, and like the Melvins, I listened to all that shit, you know. I liked High on Fire, but I don't like High on Fire is kind of a fad in the underground music scene. High on Fire became a fad, and I don't really like fads, so I avoid fads. And also because I don't want to be a poser. I'm not going to just listen to High on Fire because everyone in the underground music scene likes High on Fire. So I didn't care either way. Like if High on Fire is playing, you'd be like, yeah, that's pretty sick, dude. But outside of that, I don't fucking care. Because all I care about is my band. Or whatever band I'm in. So yeah, sure, High on Fire's cool, but my band's fucking cool too, you know. So I never really, but then I found out we even played a show with High on Fire. Like one of the bands I was in played a show with High on Fire. And so I was like, yeah, cool, you know, right on. And I got to meet Matt Pike, and he's a cool dude. But he was known to be basically an alcoholic, you know, a functioning alcoholic, which is whatever, whatever. But anyways, then High on Fire completely disappeared for like 4 or 5 years. And people were like, what the fuck? Like, what happened to High on Fire, you know? And then when High on Fire came back, Matt Pike looked like 20 years younger. And that's when they dropped the album Luminophorus. And it was in Rolling Stone magazine. High on Fire came out with a new album. They've been gone, disappeared for 5 years, and they just all of a sudden, poof, out of nowhere, they're back. And then Matt Pike, for some reason, looks 20 years younger. And so, you know, there's all this interest. Why does Matt Pike look so healthy? And he looks like 20 years younger, and they've been gone all these years, and all of a sudden they just dropped this album that's totally fucking badass. Like, what is going on? You know, so it generated some buzz. And Matt Pike literally looked 20 years younger, and everybody was confused, like, what the fuck, right? And so people are like probing, like, what is going on with High on Fire? And I found out about this, and so when I looked into it, what it was is Matt Pike, he fucking quit drinking. He got sober. And that's why he looked 20 years younger. And that's why High on Fire disappeared for 5 years, because Matt Pike was working on getting sober and detoxing off of alcohol. Like totally, completely removing alcohol and all this other, and drugs and everything, just removing it because it was killing him. And so he spent all that 5 years removing all that toxic shit from his life, and then, you know, rebuilding himself spiritually and physically. And nobody knew anything. And then all of a sudden he just shows up and he literally looks 20 years younger. And this album is sick as fuck. And so I'm like, okay, I can relate with this. So I went and bought that. Well, first I listened to it and it was like, dude, this shit's sick as fuck. It really was. It's a great album, Luminophorus. And so I became obsessed with it. And so I added it to my Megadeth collection. It's like, okay, I'm listening to these 4 original Megadeth albums, but now I'm going to include Luminophorus because holy shit, you know. And High on Fire, the lyrics are truther lyrics just like Megadeth, you know. So it's all about that shit. And not only did Matt Pike quit all drugs and alcohol, he had to get a new bass player, and that bass player had like 9 years off of all drugs and alcohol, when he came into the band High on Fire. So as a new lineup, well, just only the bass player was new. Their same original drummer, same original frontman, Matt Pike, and then this guy who'd already been, abstinent from drugs and alcohol for 9 years as the bass player. Then I found out that bass player is in a band called Zeke, who I went and saw, and Zeke is a sick as fuck band, punk rock band, underground punk rock band out of Seattle. And so he was the bass player for Zeke, and now he's playing in High on Fire. And he had like 9 years abstinent from drugs and alcohol when he joined High on Fire. And Matt Pike had like 2 or 3 years, and he looked like literally 20 years younger, like a total of like fucking crazy shit, right? And so I immediately entered High on Fire's Luminophorus into my roster, into my little roster. And so then I went through all these phases where I just listened to rock and roll and blues and shit. And then recently, out of curiosity, I just looked. I wonder what High on Fire's doing. And this was like several months ago. And I was like, they had just dropped an album a few months prior. And I'm like, what? There's a new High on Fire album? And so I listened to it, and it's like, holy shit. This album is fucking retarded good. It's so badass. And so I bought the record. I'll show you the record. Yeah. So this is my deal with music now. And so right now I don't listen to much. Right now what I've been listening to, well, besides this album, is Cometh the Storm. And it's totally relevant to everything happening today. And the songwriting is just so badass, dude. Like, there's like 3 or 4 songs that'll just make the hairs on the back of your fucking neck stand up. They're so fucking badass, dude. It's like, holy shit. So, and that's just my opinion. Everybody's different. I wouldn't expect you to react the same, but dude, it's so crazy, dude. I love the songwriting that they with this album and like Luminophorus. It's fucking crazy shit. Super heavy shit. And so it's weird. Like, so I have I only listen to shit on my phone, but sometimes I'll listen to the radio. And lately, what I listen to on the radio is like the oldies. Lately, I've just been listening to the oldies. I'm trying to think. What would be an example of an oldie song? Would be like what's that one? It says yeah, I bet you think this song is about you, don't you? Don't you? Cream in your coffee or whatever, just this goofy oldie shit. That's what lately I just listen to the oldie shit, and it's kind of, again, a way to just clear my palate. Is like, okay, I don't fucking care right now I don't really care, so I just turn on the oldies and listen to these goofy songs. I bet you think this song is about you, don't you? Shit like that. Just to kind of clear my mind, like, whatever, who fucking cares? I'll listen to that sometimes, and if I'm not listening to that, I'm listening to High on Fire, Cometh the Storm. I've got like 4 albums on my roster in my phone because I'm lazy, so I only have like 4. And so it's Cometh the Storm, a Helmet album that I never heard before. Helmet's badass, dude. Helmet is one of the most underrated fucking bands in metal and rock and roll. Like, fucking underrated band. And there's an album I never heard before called, what is it called? Seeing Eye Dog. And so I've got Helmet's album, Seeing Eye Dog. And I've got, of course, Megadeth, Rust in Peace. And High on Fire's Cometh the Storm. And I think that's it. I only have those 3 albums. So if I'm not listening to this goofy, I bet you think this song is about you shit, I'm listening to High on Fires, Come with the Storm, and the Helmet album, Seeing Eye Dog, and Megadeth's Rust in Peace. That's all I got. Yeah. And that's okay with me, like, whatever, fucking, you know, there's so much shit to listen to, it becomes overwhelming, where it's just like, whatever, yeah. And, so that's what I listened to lately for the last fucking, whatever, 10 months. Every once in a while I'll throw on, like, a Minor Threat or something like that, but whatever. And every once in a while I listen to this and that. During the event 3 years ago where this totally insane thing happened to me, the music that pulled me through that, and I listened to that ritualistically for probably a year or more, was Motorhead's album, Orgasmatron album. And then the band called Elder, they have an album called, oh shit. I can't remember the name of that album that I listened to ritualistically by Elder. Floating, Pictures of a Floating World, I think is what it's called. It's a really good album. It's a really good album if you like metal, you know. It's a really, they're good. Elder has a lot of cool shit. And then there were like 4 or 5 albums that I listened to ritualistically helped get me through the event that happened to me 3 years ago. So Motorhead's Orgasmatron, Elder's album, Pictures of a Floating World, and then Queens of the Stone Age album. You know that one famous album? I can't remember what it's called. It has the picture of the red pitchfork on it. What is that album called? I don't know. You guys know. It's the one Queens of the Stone Age album that everybody heard. And there might have been one other album. Every once in a while I'll listen to that shit too, but I don't know. I just go through weird phases where I just listen to blah blah blah, you know. You know, Melvins. Oh, Radiohead, Melvins. I like a lot of Radiohead. I like a lot of the Melvins. I like a lot of shit, you know, just random shit. But yeah. So anyways, this is a long ass fucking video about music stuff. See ya, boys.